as he laid out his vision for the India century at the NDTV World Summit.
ऐसी सदी जिसमें भारत के प्रयासों से दुनिया में स्थिरता आए,
In the presence of those who are shaping our future.
मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं।
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
सर, सबसे ज़्यादा ब्लॉकबस्टर फिल्में डिलीवर करी अमिताभ बच्चन के साथ में, और आप लोगों की जोड़ी टूटने का एक असर अमिताभ बच्चन जी पे भी जरूर पड़ा होगा।
जरूर पड़ा होगा। उनको इस बात का अफसोस हुआ होगा कि
कभी बात हुई उनकी आपकी इस सिलसिले में?
नहीं, मैं अगर होता उनकी जगह और जैसे जावेद साहब गए या मैं गया तो उनको यही राय देता है कि मत छोड़ो, अच्छा खासा तुम्हारी एक जोड़ी है, वो काम कर रही है, अच्छा खासा चल रहा है, काय के लिए इसको तोड़ते हो। तो मैं होता तो ये करता।
तो फिर आप उनकी बात सुन लेते और उसका फिर जोड़ी वापस आ जाती?
नहीं, जोड़ी वापस नहीं आती, बस ज़रूरत ही नहीं काम करने की, ये तोड़ने की, करते रहो। तो अगर मैं होता तो ये राय देता, पता नहीं उन्होंने क्या राय दी है वो।
पर आपकी बात हुई कभी उनसे इस सिलसिले में?
नहीं, बात तो होती रहती है कि मुलाकात हो जाती है तो। मगर वैसे वो ज़्यादा सख्ती से बात करते भी नहीं हैं।
अपने में रहने वाले
अपने, वो ज़्यादा किसी के करीब आते नहीं हैं, वो
अपने में ही रहने वाले रिजर्व आदमी हैं। और बाकी जो इंडस्ट्री थी, जब आप लोग हटे, आप लोगों की जोड़ी हटी, तो बाकी इंडस्ट्री का क्या रिएक्शन था उस समय? उसके बाद
कुछ लोग तो खुश होते हैं कि अच्छा हुआ, कुछ लोगों को तकलीफ होती है। अलग अलग लोगों के व्यूज़ होते हैं, अलग अलग लोगों के साथ। तो
पर आपने उसके बाद लोगों को बदलते हुए देखा? आप अपना अलग जब काम लेके जाते थे, अकेले जब काम लेके जाते थे, तो उसकी रिसेप्शन किसी अलग तरह?
नहीं, वो तो होता डेफिनेटली था। वो
पीपल वर चेंज्ड।
आप जो नाम का जो वैल्यू जो था,
ब्रांड की जो वैल्यू थी।
हाँ, अभी अगर आप कोई कहे दादाजी, तो कौन सा दादाजी धाक जी से बन रहता है।
You are watching the World 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has said that he conveyed New Delhi's concerns to Dhaka over the attacks on minorities in Bangladesh. Mr. Misri also conveyed to Bangladesh's interim government that India wishes to have a positive, constructive and mutually beneficial relationship. Israel launched a barrage of military strikes in numerous locations in Syria. Israel insists its actions were limited and temporary measures to protect its citizens, particularly in the Golan Heights that borders Syria. And the suspect in the United Healthcare CEO's shooting has appeared in court. Anyone in the United States can now use OpenAI's artificial intelligence video generator, which the company announced would become publicly available. Sora is now known as the text-to-video generator, a tool that can create AI video clips based simply on a user's written prompts. Google has built a computing chip that takes just 5 minutes to complete tasks that would take 1 billion years for some of the world's fastest conventional computers to complete. It measures just 4 centimeters squared, but it possesses almost inconceivable speed. NDTV World reports from Abu Dhabi's Finance Week, where we speak to emerging market specialists. Our big focus, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has said that he conveyed New Delhi's concerns to Dhaka over the attacks on minorities in Bangladesh. In fact, in a meeting with Bangladeshi Foreign Advisor Mohammad Touhid Hossain, Mr. Misri conveyed that the attacks on religious institutions and places of worship are regrettable. Mr. Misri also conveyed to Bangladesh's interim government that India wishes to have a positive and a constructive as well as a mutually beneficial relationship. Listen in to his comments.
I have underlined today India's desire to work closely with the interim government of Bangladesh authorities. At the same time, we also had the opportunity to discuss certain recent developments and issues, and I conveyed our concerns, including those related to the safety and welfare of minorities. We also discussed some regrettable incidents of attacks on cultural, religious and diplomatic properties.
Well, let's switch tracks now. Syrian rebel forces that toppled dictator Bashar al-Assad's regime began asserting authority over some of the government institutions as world capitals scrambled to forge links with the country's new rulers. Syria's former prime minister agreed to hand power to a transitional rebel-led government, while fighters took up posts outside federal buildings, directed traffic and rushed to find and free people in underground prisons. Now, ensuring stability and security, while easier said than done, is a major issue, because as people start fighting, weapons start spreading, everything goes down from there, as experts have said. Foreign governments, meanwhile, are readying for talks with the lead rebel faction, even as they debated whether to formally recognize the group, which some countries consider a terrorist organization. Take a look at all the latest developments so far.
In less than 2 weeks, Syria's history has been altered. President Bashar al-Assad, whose brutal regime killed tens of thousands and displaced over 7 million internally, has fled to Russia after opposition forces romped to Damascus at a lightning pace. Assad's ouster has brought in much-needed relief to people who spent their lifetime under the nose of the decades-long family regime. The reactions echoed across the globe as thousands of Syrians celebrated the fall of Assad, singing and waving flags. They chanted slogans against the ousted Syrian president and his father, Hafez.
It's like tears of happiness like today. It's like we didn't imagine. I lost my family. I lost my father, mother, brother. I lost many of my friends in Syria for this day. I wanted to celebrate this day in Syria today.
Meanwhile, world leaders have mostly hailed Assad's ouster, but stopped short of celebrating as they seek stability in the war-torn nation. US President Joe Biden has said that it's a historic opportunity, but also termed it a moment of risk and uncertainty. On the other hand, India has called for a peaceful and inclusive Syrian-led political process to bring stability to that country. Meanwhile, US President-elect Donald Trump has urged the outgoing US administration to stay out of the Syria conflict. According to reports, the US is trying to work out what comes next and who rules over Syria. Washington is worried that the power vacuum could be filled by something that is not desirable, a power grab by Islamist insurgents, including factions designated as terrorists by the US. The end of the Assad family's 5-decade rule is set to reshape the balance of power in the region. Iran, one of Assad's biggest backers, has suffered another significant blow to its influence in the region. There are big questions being asked over Russia's influence as well, considering the fact that Assad clung to power owing to Moscow's intervention in 2015. The stunning rebel offensive has threatened to eliminate Moscow's foothold in the region. At this moment, there appears to be an uneasy calm in Syria. The question hanging like a Damocles sword is, how long will this last? With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
By the way, Britain, Germany, France, Italy and several other European countries have said they would freeze all pending asylum requests from Syrians just a day after the ouster of President Bashar al-Assad. While Berlin and other governments said that they were watching the fast-moving developments in the war-ravaged nation, Austria signaled it would soon deport refugees back to Syria. In other news, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is on an official visit to Qatar and Bahrain till the 9th of December, has highlighted India's balanced approach to the Middle East and reaffirmed support for a two-state solution with regards to Israel and Palestine. Emphasizing India's strong opposition to terrorism and hostage-taking, Dr. Jaishankar also underscored the importance of respecting humanitarian law and minimizing civilian casualties in any military action. Our External Affairs Minister further highlighted India's assistance to Palestine and Lebanon amid this ongoing crisis in the Middle East. Listen in.
India has also been contributing to the UN UNRWA, UNRWA, which is the primary relief agency in respect of the Palestinians. And India has supplied relief material to Palestine, to the Palestinian Authority, through Egypt. We have also given medicines, medical relief to Lebanon because of the fighting and the casualties which have taken place there. And at the end of the day, we do believe that there must be a solution to the Palestinian issue. Because if there is not one, that will always remain the cause of instability in this region. So we do support a two-state solution.
And to decode the shifting sands of the West Asia conflict, the new Syrian theater of war, and how these developments will have an effect on regional and global geopolitics, my colleague Gauri Dwivedi spoke with Israel's envoy to India, Reuven Azar. Here's what he told NDTV.
Of course, Israel is not a stakeholder in what all happened, but it gets impacted because it's an important development that has taken place. Talk to us about how Israel is seeing how these changes have taken place in Syria and how they're set to reshape that entire region.
Well, Israel is no doubt in a situation of alert. We are following very closely the events in Syria. The Israel Defense Forces have taken defensive positions in the buffer zone, in the border between Israel and Syria. As you probably know, there is a disengagement zone that was created in 1974 following the Yom Kippur War. That zone is a buffer zone of several hundred meters to a few kilometers in the north. In the past, that area was attacked by different groups. It has been attacked now too. The UN forces there, the observers that belong to an organization called UNDOF, have been attacked. Israel has come to their rescue. So we are taking these temporary defensive positions in the buffer zone and following very closely what's going on the other side, preparing to defend ourselves against any possible attack or development.
There is this sense that I see, and several leaders are also talking about it, that Israel has sort of preempted some of what as developments are happening, or some are saying that Israel is trying to take advantage of a very volatile situation. Explain to us that is this A, temporary, B, from a security point of view, why was it necessary?
Well, as you know, Israel was attacked on the 7th of October, and that decision to attack Israel, I think, was a decision that not only caused huge damage to Israel, and we had to defend ourselves, but it also had it had an effect in the region, because from the moment that Hezbollah decided to involve itself in the conflict and attacking Israel from the north, it was just a matter of time until Israel would have to take the necessary steps to defend ourselves. So I think that Iran and Hezbollah made a huge miscalculation. They didn't understand what are going to be the consequences of their attack against Israel. Hezbollah has been hit very hard. Nasrallah, as you remember, was taken out, with many thousands of Hezbollah terrorists. Iran attacked Israel directly, and as you know, Israel defended itself and attacked Iran back. So when you look at the picture, you see that these tentacles of the Iranian regime have been cut.
But in that, the
Hamas,
reason,
Hezbollah, and now forces in the region that have been following that and seeing the debilitation of the Iran axis took advantage of it. And that's how you see the change in Syria. Israel is not involved in the Syrian conflict. We are not intending to involve ourselves in Syrian politics. And that's a matter that the Syrian people will have to sort out itself.
Well, in other news, director-writer Payal Kapadia scored a historic nomination in the Best Director category for All We Imagine As Light. The acclaimed film was also nominated in the Best Motion Picture in a non-English language category. Now, this is a big, big deal. This is the first time that a director from India has been nominated in the Best Director category at the Golden Globe Awards. And All We Imagine As Light was also recently named the Best International Film by the New York Film Critics Circle Award, as well as the Gotham Awards. It was also selected as the Best Film of the Year by the prestigious Sight and Sound magazine. A bit of a grim switch now. The year 2024 is now almost certain to become the hottest year on record, according to new data. It will also be the first year to see an average global temperature more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, which is a stark reminder of the escalating climate crisis, and also a very unsettling fact that stares us in the face. Data from November released by the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service. This shows the average global surface temperature for the month was 1.62 degrees Celsius, higher than the level seen before widespread fossil fuel use. So with 11 months of data now available, scientists predict that the annual average will reach 1.60 degrees Celsius, surpassing last year's record of 1.48 degrees Celsius. The Paris Climate Agreement, by the way, aims to limit global temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees Celsius to avoid the worst impacts of climate disasters. However, it's important to note that this target is measured over a decade or more, not just a single year. Among the things that need to be done urgently, though, well, first, fossil fuel emissions must fall by 45% by 2030 to have a chance of limiting heating to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And as you know, and as we've covered, the recent COP29 climate summit actually failed to reach an agreement on how to push ahead on the transition away from coal, away from oil and gas. By the way, switching tracks, a British Indian student has been elected president of the University of Cambridge's historic Cambridge Union Society, among the world's oldest debating societies, which prides itself as a defender of free speech since the year 1815. Anushka Kale won 126 votes to be elected uncontested for the next Easter 2025 term in an election that was just held recently. But as the serving debate officer of the society, Ms. Kale ran on a platform of strengthening ties with cultural societies of the universities, such as the India Society. As always, news and updates continue in a moment, right after this very short break.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. NDTV World, as he laid out his vision for the India century at the NDTV World Summit.
कैसी सदी जिसमें भारत के प्रयासों से दुनिया में स्थिरता आए,
In the presence of those who are shaping our future.
मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं।
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
सर, सबसे ज़्यादा ब्लॉकबस्टर फिल्में डिलीवर करी अमिताभ बच्चन के साथ में, और आप लोगों की जोड़ी टूटने का एक असर अमिताभ बच्चन जी पे भी जरूर पड़ा होगा।
जरूर पड़ा होगा, उनको इस बात का अफसोस हुआ होगा कि
कभी बात हुई उनकी आपकी इस सिलसिले में?
नहीं, मैं अगर होता उनकी जगह और जैसे जावेद साहब गए या मैं गया तो उनको यही राय देता है कि मत छोड़ो, अच्छा खासा तुम्हारे।
Welcome back. Let's get you a quick update from the US now, where authorities have arrested the man who is suspected of killing United Health executive Brian Thompson in a brazen shooting, outside a Manhattan hotel last week, ending a massive 5-day manhunt. The 26-year-old suspect was captured in Pennsylvania after he was spotted eating at a McDonald's by an employee of the fast food restaurant. Here's what the New York Police Department had to say.
Members of the Altoona Police Department arrested Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old male, on firearms charges. At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen targeted murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, last Wednesday in Midtown Manhattan. The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police.
Staying with updates from the US, Donald Trump has promised to end birthright citizenship as soon as he gets into office to make good on his campaign promises, aiming to restrict immigration and redefining what it means to be American. Now, birthright citizenship means anyone born in the United States automatically becomes an American citizen. It's been in place for decades and applies to children that are born to someone in the country illegally or in the US on a tourist or student visa who plans to return to their home country. So any efforts to halt this policy is very likely to face steep legal hurdles. And Natasha Esrani joins us for further clarity on the matter. Natasha, Trump's proposal to end birthright citizenship, doesn't it directly challenge the 14th Amendment, which you have been saying is a cornerstone of American constitutional law? So how feasible is making such a change through an executive order?
It's not easy at all to make this change, according to legal experts. Now, I want to give you some context to this 14th Amendment. It was ratified in 1868, and then it was designed to extend citizenship to freed slaves and their descendants. So immigration, illegal or legal, is not what it was addressing way back then. Now, what President-elect Donald Trump argues is that it has become a magnet for illegal immigration and what he calls birth tourism, that people come to the United States just to give birth so that their children can automatically receive citizenship. But constitutional scholars say that what President-elect Donald Trump is saying is that he can change it through executive order is really difficult and unlikely. What they say is if any changes have to be made to this constitutional guarantee, it has to be through a constitutional amendment. And that is not an easy process. That requires 2/3 majority in Congress, and it also has to be ratified by 3/4 of state legislatures. So very difficult to pull off. And Donald Trump has also talked about this earlier in 2018 when he was president then, and also at that time failed to actually carry it out. If that changes this time on when he's sworn president, it's going to have a massive impact and would really impact millions of children and put a huge pressure also on the legal system were it to pass.
Natasha, as always, thanks so much for breaking down all the details for us. In other news, China has announced that it has launched an investigation into NVIDIA over suspected violations of the country's anti-monopoly laws. This move is widely seen as a response to recent US restrictions on China's chip sector. But for further clarity, we have with us journalist Zenia Bahel, who's also a professor, joining us live from Cleveland, Ohio at the moment. Thanks so much for making time for us on NDTV. Now, as we understand, the State Administration for Market Regulation, which is handling the probe, it's not provided specific details on how NVIDIA may have breached China's anti-monopoly rules?
No, there aren't specific details about how, right? But this can be considered a counterattack to the tariffs, right? The trade restrictions, and also restrictions on sale of AI-related technology to China, right? And the attempt by the US government, specifically right now, the Biden administration, right? The attempt by that administration to, prevent competition with China, to prevent China from having that knowledge that currently NVIDIA has to manufacture AI chips. And let me tell you, NVIDIA is a market leader with 90% of sales being in its sort of kitty, I would call it, for AI chip sales, right? So it's interesting how this is played out, with Trump first announcing that he's going to introduce that 25% tariff, and then Biden already having rules in place to restrict sale of AI technology, to then now in a very rare, like this occurrence is very rare, wherein Chinese regulators are actually investigating NVIDIA for antitrust and for monopolizing, right, manufacturing of AI chips. Another thing I'd like to add is this isn't the first time that China has targeted an AI technology company. There have been others, such as Qualcomm, which was fined approximately $954 million, right? There's also been Myron. So other American technology companies have been targeted by China. And since NVIDIA is, as I said, a market leader in the manufacture of AI chips, which enables AI to process tasks in parallel, right? It requires
let's wait and see how this entire situation does play out. But thanks so much, Zenia, for joining us with those quick comments. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates as and when this progresses. In other news, NDTV World is at the Abu Dhabi Finance Week. We're actually speaking to emerging market specialists there. Disha Bagchi, my colleague, spoke to emerging market specialists regarding how Trump's return will impact investment strategies. Here's what they had to say.
How do you see the role of emerging markets evolving, especially markets such as India and Asian economies, which are often even called tiger economies? So how do you see their role evolving in the global economic landscape? And what do you think are some of the factors that is contributing to their transformation?
Well, of course, in my position, I'm always saying they're getting more important, given that we are an emerging markets investor. But in the end, it's very simple economics when you look at the growth rates on a lot of the emerging markets economy and you compare those to developing markets, and particularly, of course, to Europe, that the importance of the emerging markets is increasing. If you look at just, of course, the example in China, the way they've gone from a relatively small economy to the second largest economy in the world in 25 years. And we expect that from a number of other countries as well, as they're now growing at sort of 5 to 10% GDP growth per annum. So by definition, they're going to become more important with never bet against the US economy that will continue to grow, but look at Europe, that's growing between 0 and 1%. If things are going well. So
in comparison, the Indian economy has been growing quite fast and quite steadily, you would say, right? Yeah.
Yes, indeed, for the last few years, absolutely.
And what do you think are some of the factors that could be contributing to, the transformation of these emerging markets and, really pushing that growth?
Yeah, I think Look, what's contributing in the end to consistent GDP growth is clear government policies and willingness to achieve them. And I think also if you look at sort of, well, I'm not a specialist on the Indian economy, but it has developed certain sectors really well. And I think that's what you see in a number of emerging markets where they develop the sectors well that they're good at. As you see here in the region, where of course the energy sector is key, and that contributes for an important part to the GDP growth. And I think then the secret going forward is of course to diversify the economies and effectively increase the middle class as a higher percentage of your population.
And as always, we'll keep tracking the latest developments for you. Do stay tuned.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
I now request the Honorable Prime Minister to launch NDTV World and address the summit.
It was the grand launch of NDTV World by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. NDTV World, as he laid out his vision for the India century at the NDTV World Summit.
ऐसी सदी जिसमें भारत के प्रयासों से दुनिया में स्थिरता आए,
in the presence of those who are shaping our future.
मेरी तरफ से आपको ढेर सारी शुभकामनाएं हैं।
NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
अपने टैलेंट के दम पे तमाम दरवाजे खोले। किसी बड़े बाप की औलाद नहीं था वो आदमी, उसकी सक्सेस से तो तमाम लोगों को जो इंस्पिरेशन मिलती है वो नेक्स्ट लेवल है।
सर वो तो है, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ रुकावट तो बहुत थी, क्योंकि ये लड़का जिस रफ्तार से आगे जा रहा था बहुत, तो रुकावट तो आएगी। तो रुकावट ऐसे आई कि हीरोइन को बोल दिया जाता था कि इसके साथ काम मत करो, तो करते भी नहीं थे। फिर किसी भी तरह कैसे भी कोई भी फिल्म मिल जाए, मैं बोला नहीं करना क्या। मेरे दिल में को ऐसे हारूंगा तो लड़ के हारूंगा, ऐसे नहीं हारूंगा मैं। तो वो एक बात तो थी। तो दोपहर वही जो काले रंग वाली बात है ना, वही बात मुझे बहुत दिमाग बहुत रोता था, बहुत ये सचमुच के बहुत रोता था कि भगवान ये कैसे तोड़ूँ मैं, कैसे हो सकता है। फिर एक दिन दिमाग में आया